Jason Davis, Best Soccer Show, on the line with us, University of Akron men's soccer coach and U.S. Olympic head coach Caleb Porter. How are you, Coach?
Doing well.
All right, so you've got this Olympic process coming up. Quick turnaround between now and March when qualifying starts. Got a bunch of guys in Germany. Talk about your process for evaluating the pool and how you're going to go about picking the guys that will ultimately, hopefully, take you to London.
Well, this was a process that began before I took the job. Even though they didn't have an Olympic coach that was appointed, there was a handful of people, scouts, Claudia Rainey, the technical director, Thomas Rangen was also assisting in putting together an extensive group, a player pool, domestic, overseas professionals. We do have a quick turnaround, but we feel like because the process has already been started in identifying the player pool, we feel like we have plenty of time to put together a group in order to qualify. And right now, that's the number one priority. We have a camp going on right now in Germany. We have 35 players there. 23 of those players are realistic players for the U23. The others are more U20 age group players. So it's kind of a mix of both age groups. Claudia Reina and Tab Ramos are leading that camp because I'm here with Akron. We have our conference tournament this week and an NCAA tournament starting next week. So I wasn't able to be in this camp, but I will be in every camp from this point forward. We'll do another camp in early to mid-December. We'll do several camps in January, several camps in February, and then obviously qualifying is in late March. So we feel like we have plenty of time to put the group together. A big part of this process will be player identification and player personnel selection. We really looked at this camp over in Germany as an opportunity to look at a lot of the overseas players that are abroad, some of which we've not brought into a U.S. national team camp before. We've seen them on tape, seen them in person. Our scouts have given us good intel on some of these players. And listen, we're going to not leave any stones unturned. We're trying to find the best guys that will help us qualify. A lot of the domestic players we're aware of, and we'll continue to track them. We'll continue to bring them into camp. But we have 20 players out of the 35 that are players who are playing professionally abroad. So we really looked at that as a good opportunity to look at some of these players.
So what enticed you to accept this challenge, to take the Olympic job? And was it Jurgen Klinsmann himself or just somebody at U.S. Soccer that approached you about taking over the Olympic team?
Well, good question. I'm a coach that is always looking for a challenge and always looking for an opportunity to help grow the sport. I've approached my team at Akron that way. A big inspiration for me was not just winning, but it was trying to play the game in a way that we could develop players and grow the sport. And I had the opportunity 2.5 years ago to get involved with U.S. Soccer as an assistant coach with the under-18 national team. And I looked at that as an opportunity to, again, help to develop players and grow the sport. And even though I was coaching at Akron, it was kind of a dual duty that I was doing there, and I really enjoyed that and had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Claudia Reina, Sunil Gulati, and Dan Flynn. And I spent some time a few months back with Jurgen Klinsmann, several hours with him as well, and shared my philosophies to the game with him. And we really hit it off, and I think that's a big part of this. Is philosophically, we all need to be on the same page, and the vision that Jurgen has for U.S. Soccer, I think, is a very good one. The vision that Claudia Reina has, and Dan Flynn and Sunil Gulati, I think, is a very good model, and it's something that it's been a long time coming, and we're trying to align all the national teams together. Certainly they all feed into the full team, and we need to have a uniform brand, a uniform philosophy of how we're going to go about training, in terms of how we're going to approach, our system and style of play. And it's a cooperation. And I certainly have been made to feel that it's going to be a cooperation from Jurgen with him and I. Certainly there's a lot of players. Some of the top players that are on his team are U23 age players, and so he's been fully in support of my role and has led me to believe that he's going to be helping to get his players with my group, and it's going to be a partnership, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've been working dual duty even though I'm still at Akron. I've been on conference calls daily. Just had a call with Claudio to get a rundown on the first full day of training. Went through every player, went through training. Certainly I was a part of selecting this first group in this camp, and can't wait to hit the ground running in December once my season is done at Akron.
Coach, the Olympic situation is a little interesting. You might have there was put to me this way by my partner who couldn't be here today. He said people are comparing your situation to that of Coach K in U.S. basketball. Do you feel like that's an appropriate comparison? And if so, what can you take away from his experience with coaching an Olympic team as a college coach and balancing between professional and amateurs?
Well, I think the comparison certainly has been made, and that's because Coach K is a college coach, and he had the opportunity to coach the Olympic team as well, and he was very successful in doing that. I've had several opportunities to be a pro coach over the last several years. I chose to stay at Akron for a number of reasons. I won't get into that, but I do feel like one day that will be a move that I make. I've been coaching young professionals for the last 11 years. So even though they weren't professionals yet, they were eventually professionals. And so, especially in the last 3 years at Akron, we've had 12 players who have moved on to Major League Soccer, and these are players who are some of the best young up-and-coming players that we have in this country. Players who have been with the 17s, the 18s, the 20s, and now with the full team. And so, I feel like that experience has really prepared me for this. I also feel, again, going back to my time with the U18s, my time there has really prepared me for this as well. It fits in a good time of the year. We're done in December, and I will move into 2 feet in, full force into getting this team ready for qualifying. And I won't be at Akron a lot. I'll be on the road. I'll be scouting. I'll be in training camps, and I'll be preparing. My number one priority will be preparing this team to qualify for the Olympics in March. And so from January through hopefully the Olympics, I'll still be attached to Akron, and I'll still be continuing to lead that program when I'm here. But I have a great staff. And probably I couldn't have done this if I didn't have a great staff. I have an associate head coach and 2 full-time assistants who can keep the program rolling. But it's a good time of the year. It's the off season, and I'm up to the challenge. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm certainly well aware of the player pool. I've coached several of the players that are going to be in the group, and again, some of the players with the 18s will be players possibly in the pool, and I'm looking forward to it.
Do you speak any German, Coach?
I do not. I do not.
Are you going to pick some up? There's a lot of Germans in that camp over there. It makes sense. It's in Germany. There's so many guys. There's more German Americans in the camp than kids from California or Texas. What does that say? Does that mean we're relying a little bit too much on this German connection?
No, I think what it says is there are a lot of very good players out there. And again, we need to look at all the options. It doesn't mean that we're going to have 20 players who are from Germany, but it was a good opportunity to look at some of the overseas players, some of the players that might not be able to come to the domestic camps, might not be able to be released from their clubs, and again, get a look at all the players that are out there, players that we've seen, identified, and let us know kind of where we're at with the pool. And then once we get into the future camps, we'll continue to hone in on the group and really start to put the team together, start to imprint the style of play, start to implement the system, start to really figure out where where our depth is in every position, and really who will be ultimately a part of the group.
One of the things that's going to go into, or one of the things that might be evident when you pick your team to go qualify first and then potentially go to London, there might be some wealth disparity in this group. You got some guys in Germany or in Europe that are making good money, and other guys who might be in MLS and aren't making much money. Does that enter into your thinking in terms of the mix of the roster at all?
No, not really. Listen, these guys are professional players. They all play this game for a living, and they're on teams. Whether they're overseas or whether they're in this country, they're on teams with a discrepancy in pay and salary, and I don't think those are things that really enter into the equation. One of my greatest strengths is putting a group together and being able to get the group to come together, and I think that my leadership and my ability to manage a group, the psychology, certainly the training component, in a short amount of time. It's cram coaching. You have 10 days at a time at training camp, and you need to move that group forward as much as you can in those 10 games, or in those 10 days. And again, I've had experience with that with the 18s. But to some extent in college, you're in that situation as well. You have 4 months to get your team ready. In preseason, you have 2 weeks to get your team ready. And so I'm used to getting teams ready. Certainly a lot of it is player selection, personnel, but then from there it's about quickly getting them together, get the chemistry right, finding the right mix of players, and getting them used to the way that we're going to do things in terms of our culture of style of play, system, and then it's game planning. It's looking at the opponent, looking at our team, and coming up with a plan to win that game and get a result. And so, I'm excited about this process. I'm excited about figuring out which guys can help us. Certainly that started now with me getting a rundown on how guys have done in this camp starting today. And then from there, we'll move to the next group. Some guys that are in the camp in Germany will be in the camp in December. Some won't, and we might even have some new guys in the camp in December. But really, when we get into January, February, I'd like to start to get the group together that we feel will be helping us to qualify in March. We don't want to be just bringing in a revolving door of players all the way up to qualifying. But we look at these first couple camps really as a chance to get a look at the entire pool, and again, some guys that we don't necessarily know about, and we don't have experience with, and we don't now know what they can offer the group. But once we get into January, February, and into March, we'll really start to put the group together, and now the team building really begins.
You just recently added a couple of guys from MLS teams that their teams are out of the playoffs now. There's a handful of MLS guys on this roster. It's not a lot. It's not a little. What is the number of guys? And Teal Bunbury is on there, and some guys that you coached in college. What is the number of MLS players? Does it say anything at all about MLS's ability to develop players as professionals?
I think a lot of the majority of the players will most likely be from MLS. There will be some players overseas, but a lot of the players in this group will be from MLS. And then, of course, the players that are with the full team, many of them are playing abroad, and so certainly they will factor into this group. And I've been again led to believe that we will get the best U23 players that we have. Jurgen is on board with that, and he wants to put together the best group possible to qualify, and then heading into the Olympics. This is something that is important to our country, and so I think it'll be a mix. I think MLS is doing its part to develop players, and again, a lot of the players that will be with this group are from MLS, and they've cut their teeth in MLS, and I think it makes a great statement for what our country is doing to grow the sport. But then again, we have players who are overseas, and I think you can't necessarily say that one is better than the other. I think it depends on the situation, and it certainly depends on the player, and it depends on there's a lot of different paths to get to become a full national team player or a U23 Olympic team player. And I think there are examples in this group of players who have gone right in MLS, then overseas, and then into the national team. There have been players who have gone directly overseas and have stayed over there and developed over there. And so there's a number of different scenarios, but certainly we've had a plethora of players who have been developed in our country, and so that bodes well for what our country is doing to grow the sport and develop players.
The qualifying tournament will be in the States, if I have that right. And, obviously everybody looks at Mexico. That's the big rival. But who else in the region poses any kind of threat? There's only 2 spots up for grabs.
Yeah, the Caribbean finals still need to be played, and that'll be in November. And qualifying will be in Tennessee in late March 22nd, 24th, 26th. And then the semifinals are April 2nd, and those are in Kansas City. And so, listen, this is Mexico. Clearly, they're the biggest competition, but there are several teams, dangerous teams in this CONCACAF region, and we're not taking anybody lightly. And so, once the draw comes out, we'll know our group. That Mexico will be in the other group, and then it's a matter of being hopefully the number 1 out of the group. We'll play the number 2 in the other group. But you need to be the top 2 to make the semifinals, and then certainly the team that wins the 2 teams that win the semifinals will go to the Olympics.
A couple questions for Caleb Porter, college coach. The landscape of college soccer has changed a lot over the past 10 or so years. How does your job as a top-level college coach, how has that changed expectations around your program?
Well, it's changed certainly the expectation around the country. I think the expectation in this area has always been a high one. People have felt we were a top program, and yet I'm not sure around the country that that prior to me getting here, that people really felt we were a realistic contender to win the national championship year in, year out. And that was my vision in taking over the program. Is I wanted to build a program that could consistently compete to win a national championship, and do it in a way that was attractive, attack-oriented. I felt that in order to build the program at a level where we could compete against the biggest and best schools from the biggest conferences, is we needed to have a team that was talented, on par with the other teams. We needed to have a team that could dictate the game and go into games not hoping to win but expecting to win. We needed to build, a style of play where we could dominate those teams. And last year was a great example. The year before was a great example. We lost 1 game in 50 games. And we played the best schools in the country, and we went into every single game expecting to win, expecting to be on the ball, expecting to control the game with our possession and our pressure. And most games we did play dominant soccer, where we were controlling what was happening in the game. And that's my philosophy, my style. That's the way I like to approach my teams. I'm not a sit back and wait to see what's going to happen type of guy. And I believe that in order to consistently be successful, you have to approach the game that way. Certainly you have to have talent, and it takes time to build to that point. It took 5 years to get to the point where we could win a national championship, but it did finally happen. This year we've lost some guys, 7 professionals, and yet we're still playing the game the same way. Our identity's the same. Our style of play is the same. And, we're doing pretty good losing 7 pros. Not as good as I would have liked. Obviously, every loss for me is painful. Right. But 13-3-3 isn't bad losing 7 pros. No program had ever lost 7 professionals to Major League Soccer, and we were able to quickly reload and with a young team we're in a position for postseason success, which is where we want it to be.
Well, Coach, you're a big picture guy. You mentioned, growing the game and development, all of those things. You've worked with U18s. You're going to coach this Olympic team. And as a college coach, the role of college soccer is going to change, and it probably already is changing in the U.S. development structure. How is that going to even change further in the next, 10 or 20 years? In 20 years, are we talking about a college system that isn't quite delivering the same number of professionals as we're seeing now?
It's another great question. It's hard to look at my crystal ball and
sorry about that,
and know what it's going to be like 10 years from now. But I think I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I think it will change. I think it will change. I think college soccer will always be around. I think it will always have a place in our country's infrastructure. But if we're evolving at a level like we should be, and if we're following the same models that the most successful countries in the world are following, then we probably should be getting less and less of the top players coming into college. I still think that you'll find there'll be players that fall through the cracks. There'll be players that aren't ready. There'll be players that just want to go that route.
Right.
And that's why it's important that college soccer is still relevant, is still a viable option. We still have college coaches who are approaching things the way we've approached things, where we're trying to win, but really we're trying to still develop players. And in some ways you're prioritizing that over even winning, which is a tough thing to do when your job relies on winning.
Right.
But I think in time you'll see less and less players go into college. But I think college soccer will certainly always be around, and I think you'll have, like I said, you'll still have players that will need to go that path.
All right, Coach, we appreciate the time. Best of luck in conference tournament, NCAA tournament. Best of luck with the Olympic team. Got a full plate. I know you're capable of it. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate having me on.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this another special edition of the Best Soccer Show on the North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. As always, find us on YouTube. I'm sorry, YouTube. Well, yeah, you can find us on YouTube. I misspoke, but whatever. iTunes, NASN.TV. We are on Roku. We are on Apple TV. We're on a lot of places. Go find us there. Wednesday night. Who knows when you'll be listening to this? Wednesday night, we'll have a live episode, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. Sports Illustrated's Grant Wahl will join us, talk MLS playoffs, U.S. national team, all of the various American soccer topics as usual. Thanks again, guys. See you then.
Journey to the moon.